The Avengers Age of Ultron, it is finally here. So in this movie, you start out the Avengers, they're doing their thing, they're kicking ass, and Tony Stark is thinking, you know, in the last movie, we went up against giant spaceships and barely won. I think it's time to let someone else do the job from now on. And him and Bruce Banner decide to make an AI called Ultron, and for some reason, they gave it the voice of James Spader. If I'm making an AI that's supposed to protect the entire world, I'm not making it the voice of James Spader. You were looking for trouble the moment that you gave that AI the voice of James Spader. Now, personally, if I'm making an AI that's supposed to protect the world, I'm gonna give it the voice of like Michael Cera. Definitely not James Spader. So anyway, then Ultron gets made, and then he decides, you know what, I'm here to protect the Earth, and it's humans that are destroying it. They must all die, but first the Avengers. And that's pretty much our plot. And this movie was a mess. A crazy, weird, beautiful mess that I absolutely loved. The best thing about this movie is that it is fun. The movie is 2.5 hours and I was entertained from the first minute to the last. It's impressive that this film was able to engage me for 2.5 hours. I really hope that Mr. Bay was watching this movie and taking notes, because this mess never needs to happen again. Starting off, this movie is gut-bustingly funny. The humor in this movie is brilliantly written and so well executed. And when you're in a packed movie theater and we're all laughing at the same thing, it only adds to the experience for me. It is by far the funniest Marvel movie to date. And the Stan Lee cameo was the best one to date. The theater was erupting. And along with the humor, you have amazingly well-realized characters. Every single Avenger gets their time to shine in this movie. It's amazing that they're able to divvy up time to about 10 characters and not have it be a mess. It just makes you emotionally latch on to each and every one of them. The two standout characters in this movie for me were Hawkeye and the Vision. What they did with Hawkeye was amazing. It humanized the movie a little bit more and it brought a lot more depth to his character. And the Vision is just so cool. He's well spoken, he's philosophical but never pretentious, and he's just really likable. And there is one scene with the Vision that is so badass. The whole theater could not believe it. And every other performance and character is up to par as usual. Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, great as usual. Chris Evans as Captain America, great as usual. Hemsworth as Thor, great as usual. And also Mark Ruffalo, Scarlett Johansson, Colby Smulders, Samuel L. Jackson, it's all up to par as usual. Let's talk about the villain, you guys. The showstopper, his name is in the title. This guy right here, Ultron. Pretty good villain. Going in, I thought Ultron was going to be evil, maniacal, ruthless, and he is, but I did not know he would be this funny. And most of that has to do with James Spader as the voice of Ultron. That voice is just perfect to play a condescending, wise-ass, which Ultron is. I'm telling you guys, he had some killer one-liners in this one. And so now, let's talk about the twins. Quicksilver, no, not that Quicksilver. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. 3 words. Cheesy Russian accents. I'm not even saying that as a bad thing. I actually loved it. The accents aren't that good, but it's just cheesy enough that it just works. Their powers are very cool. They have a good dynamic with the rest of the cast, and it's just so cool to see them battling alongside the Avengers. But those accents, I keep battling with myself of whether that's a pro or a con. I'm pretty sure it's both. And finally, my last pro of the day. Trust me, folks, I can go on all day with these pros, but I have to stop at some time. It's just how well paced this movie really is. The action scenes in this movie, they're great, they're grand, it's a lot to take in. And then Joss Whedon knows when to slow it down a little bit. After we get this ginormous, very long but very good action sequence, the Avengers then go to a safe house in its nice breathing room. We just saw about a 15-minute action sequence. We need some time to breathe and let things soak in. Big time props to Joss Whedon to know when to slow things down and when to rev them back up. Because a problem that I had with Fury 7 is the action sequences are great, but they are long. There isn't enough time in between those action sequences in Fury 7 to really breathe. So after a while, all the action sequences in Fury 7 will really mesh together and it all just becomes really repetitive. Which is the main reason why I didn't really like Fury 7 all that much, but Avengers did it properly. Oof. That's all the pros I have. Let's go to the cons. I keep reading everywhere that the first cut of this movie was about 3.5 hours. That really showed. You can just see that there were a lot of loose plot threads that were never really solved, and it kind of makes sense that it's because they had to cut scenes out of the movie. It's kind of obvious when you see it, and it only brings up things that are mentioned but never really brought up again. Like the origin of Ultron felt really rushed to me. When Ultron is made, it kind of happens just like that. You don't get a lot of backstory, you don't see into his psyche or really understand his motivation. I would have liked to see more scenes to really understand why Ultron has this motivation. It kind of feels like a letdown because I really wanted to see more backstory with Ultron. And then they do this weird, very short side thing with Thor for like a couple minutes. Nothing was really ever resolved in that. It just felt like this weird thing shoehorned in the movie because, you know, we need to remind people that Thor Ragnarok is happening. And as much as I did love the humor in this movie, they might have done a tad too much of it. I don't need every single line in this movie to be a witty one-liner. I wish they pulled back just a little bit. And it is very clear to see that Joss Whedon's time with the Avengers, it is done. You can definitely see the wheels of Joss Whedon coming off a little bit with this movie. What I'm trying to say is franchises like this need to keep having fresh ideas. When you get a director that's been on a franchise for too long, you can see him really burn out. I saw that sort of happen with Joss Whedon with this movie, and which is why I am very excited to see that the Russo brothers are doing Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and 2. It's really good to keep things fresh with these type of franchises. And the last con that I have for this movie is the Hulkbuster scene. This is my fault because I hyped up this thing way too much. Don't get me wrong, the Hulkbuster scene, it's very cool, but I did feel a little underwhelming, and that's because of the context of when it happened. When you kind of see it in the context of the movie, it's not as epic and big as the trailers promised it would be. But you could feel different about that scene, but for me, it felt a little underwhelming considering how much they showed in the trailers that this was going to be a big thing in the movie. Also, does anyone else feel like the trailers misrepresented this movie? When you look at the tone of the 3 trailers for this movie, specifically the first one, and you match it against the tone of this movie, it doesn't really add up. Which isn't a bad thing whatsoever, I'm not complaining about it, but what I'm trying to say is that the trailer made it more dark than the movie really is. So Avengers Age of Ultron, it's freaking awesome! It is funny, it's entertaining, fantastic dialogue, fantastic characters. Plot at times did get a little messy and that was very noticeable, and you could see that this movie had to be cut down a lot. I've had about 24 hours to really let this soak in and think about it, and I'm gonna give it 4.9 out of 5 reels. I just couldn't get it to the 5 out of 5 reels. It was so close. And in case you are asking, yes, I do believe this is better than the first Avengers film. I do think it's better than Guardians of the Galaxy as well, but the jury is still out with me if it's better than Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I need a little more time on that one. What did you guys think of Avengers Age of Ultron? Make sure to comment below, hit that subscribe button, hit me up on Twitter at my website, brendanhasablog.wordpress.com. A spoiler review for this movie will be coming this weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Till next time, I'm Brendan Weissman. Peace.